On the crisp morning of October 19, 2006, the world's most glamorous magazines seemed to sing in unison, their glossy covers emblazoned with a headline that echoed across continents: Greek prince weds Croatian beauty at the Vatican. It truly sounded like something ripped straight from the pages of a classic fairy tale, didn't it? We're talking tiara's ancient nobility, the breathtaking grandeur of frescoed chapels, the whole works. But here's where our story takes a delightful, unexpected twist. There was never actually a Prince Nicholas of Greece involved in this particular wedding. And the groom, as charming as he undoubtedly was, didn't hold a single Greek royal title. So, what on earth happened? Why did the global media, usually so meticulous, keep calling him that? And how did a rather quiet, unassuming British lord manage to hijack the front pages of newspapers and magazines worldwide under a completely mistaken identity? Stick around, because the real story behind those headlines is not just stranger than fiction. It's also a whole lot sweeter and more fascinating than any simple fairy tale could ever be. Let's cut straight to the chase and tackle the most glaring question. If our groom wasn't a Greek prince, then who exactly did tie the knot that day? The answer, my friends, is Lord Nicholas Windsor. Yes, Windsor, as in the very same illustrious family that calls Windsor Castle home. He's the younger son of the Duke of Kent, which makes him a grandson of Prince George, Duke of Kent, and a great-grandson of none other than King George V. In other words, he's absolutely, unequivocally, 100% British royal blood, through and through, with all the historical olive branches and centuries of lineage that implies. Yet, somehow, wire services across the globe consistently filed the story under the tantalizing, albeit incorrect, banner of Greek prince. The root of this widespread mix-up, it turns out, lies with Nicholas's father. The Duke of Kent, before he married into the British royal family, briefly held the rather grand title of Prince of Greece and Denmark. It's a historical quirk, a vestige of intertwined European royal houses, and that's where the confusion began. A quick glance from a harried editor, perhaps working under tight deadlines, spotting the word prince and the historical connection to Greece was enough. They slapped Greek in front of it, hit publish with a flourish, and just like that, an accidental legend was born. Overnight, Lord Nicholas was inadvertently transformed into a Hellenic heartthrob, and the internet, with its insatiable appetite for easy narratives, has been faithfully repeating this charming error ever since. It's a perfect example of how a small, understandable mistake can snowball into a widely accepted, yet entirely fabricated, truth. So, what's the big deal? It's the actual difference between a lord and a prince in the British system. In Britain, it's quite a significant distinction, carrying with it a whole different set of expectations, duties, and social standing. Princes, generally speaking, are born into the absolute top tier of royalty. Typically, they are the sons or grandsons of a reigning monarch. They are in the direct line of succession, often performing official royal duties and representing the crown on a grand scale. Lords, on the other hand, while they can certainly be members of the extended royal family, are usually further down the pecking order. They belong to the aristocracy. But their titles, don't necessarily imply the same level of direct royal lineage or responsibilities as a prince. Nicholas, for instance, was styled lord at birth because his father inherited the dukedom, which conferred that title rather than a princely prefix. His path was always intended to be a little less in the glare of the royal spotlight. He grew up at the Grand Kensington Palace, a childhood steeped in history and privilege, and later attended the prestigious Eton College, an institution synonymous with British elite education. But Nicholas also carved out his own path, making a deeply personal decision that would have profound implications for his future. He converted to Catholicism. This act, while a profound spiritual choice for him, legally barred him from the line of succession to the British throne under the Act of Settlement 1701. However, it also, rather serendipitously, set the stage for one of the most surprising and historically significant royal wedding locations in 4 centuries. His journey highlights that even within the confines of royalty, individuals can make choices that redefine their place within, and sometimes outside, traditional expectations. Now, let's turn our attention to the bride. Paola Doimi de Lupis. Doesn't that name just roll off the tongue like something out of a sweeping Renaissance novella? And in many ways, her background is just as rich and layered. Her family boasts an impressive lineage, tracing its roots all the way back to 14th century Croatian nobility, with branches that gracefully extend into the aristocratic circles of Italy and Sweden. This wasn't some newly minted title. This was history, tradition, and a deep sense of heritage. Reporters, bless their hearts, loved the exotic mouthful of consonants that made up her surname. Headline writers, however, with their relentless pursuit of brevity, did not. They found it far too cumbersome for a snappy front-page splash. So, they did what they always do. They shortened it, often referring to her simply as Countess Paola. While not technically accurate in the strictest sense of British or even European noble titles, it certainly sounded appropriately aristocratic and fit neatly into a headline. Paola herself was a woman of the world. Growing up between the vibrant cultural hubs of Stockholm and Rome, she wasn't just a pretty face with a long lineage. She was intelligent and driven, studying law and later carving out a career in New York media. It was in the bustling, cosmopolitan heart of Manhattan. At a sophisticated cocktail party in 2001, that destiny, or perhaps just a clumsy moment, brought her and Lord Nicholas together. The story goes that he, in a moment of endearing awkwardness, spilt red wine on her dress. A potentially disastrous encounter, right? But Paola, with her grace and good humor, forgave him. And that simple act of forgiveness blossomed into something truly special. For the next 5 years, Nicholas proved his devotion, flying faithfully across the Atlantic, bridging continents and time zones to show Paola just how serious he was. It's a modern romance with an old-world charm, proving that even royals can find love in the most ordinary or perhaps stained of circumstances. Royal marriages, you see, aren't simply about romance and heartfelt vows. They're deeply interwoven with constitutional law, tradition, and centuries of protocol. Under the strictures of the Royal Marriages Act, even minor royals, those further down the line of succession, traditionally needed the reigning monarch's explicit, written blessing to marry. By 2006, the rules had relaxed a touch, becoming a little less draconian for those more distantly related to the throne. However, a ceremony held within the hallowed walls of the Vatican itself was still a monumental undertaking. One that absolutely required a very special nod of approval from Her Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II, and sign off she did, making Nicholas the first member of the Windsor family, indeed, the first British royal, allowed to marry inside St. Peter's Basilica or any Vatican chapel since the tumultuous religious upheavals of the Reformation, some 4 centuries prior. Just think about that for a moment. The supreme governor of the Church of England, the head of the Anglican faith, consented to a full Catholic Mass, celebrated by the Pope's own chaplain for a member of her own family. This wasn't just a simple formality, it was a profound diplomatic gesture, bridging historical divides and signaling a remarkable moment of religious tolerance and reconciliation. You can almost imagine the diplomatic ink drying on those documents under a chorus of very raised eyebrows. Perhaps even a few quiet gasps from the more traditional quarters of the palace. It was a clear demonstration of how, even in the staunchest of institutions, progress and personal choice can sometimes find a way to intertwine. Inside the breathtaking beauty of the Pauline Chapel, a carefully curated guest list of just 200 watched as the couple exchanged their vows. It was an intimate affair, despite the grand setting. Paola, a vision of elegance, wore a stunning creation by Valentino, a designer synonymous with timeless sophistication. Nicholas, meanwhile, wore the unmistakable look of a man who'd not only navigated the complexities of royal protocol, but had finally, triumphantly, cleared customs on the journey to marital bliss. But outside, the narrative was still running wild. The press pool, ever eager for a catchy story, continued to parrot the Greek prince myth with such unwavering conviction that even the vigilant Vatican security guards started meticulously checking invitations for non-existent royalty. One can only imagine the confusion as guests tried to explain that no, there wasn't a Greek prince, just a very British lord. The couple eventually exited, stepping out into the Roman sunshine under the impressive, crossed halberds of the Swiss Guard, an iconic image that flashed across every television network that night, almost invariably accompanied by the same stubbornly erroneous Chiron, Greek prince weds. Somewhere back in a quiet London office, a royal courtier, undoubtedly accustomed to such media missteps, probably opened the morning papers, let out a weary sigh, and reached instinctively for a much-needed cup of coffee. The truth, it seemed, was still playing catch-up. Marriage, far from slowing them down, seemed to propel them forward. Lord and Lady Nicholas Windsor settled into a life in Rome, a city steeped in history and vibrant culture, and soon welcomed 3 boys into their family: Albert, Leopold, and Louis. Each of their sons bears a surname that, much like Paola's maiden name, sounds wonderfully historic. Almost like a medieval treaty come to life, Windsor de Lupis. It's a testament to their blended heritage, a modern echo of their unique story. Their lives are anything but quiet. Paola, leveraging her legal background, dedicates her considerable talents to the complex and vital field of refugee law, working tirelessly to advocate for those displaced and in need. Nicholas, for his part, is a passionate campaigner against human trafficking, a global scourge he actively fights to eradicate. Their Instagram, if they were to have one, wouldn't be filled with curated selfies, but rather a blur of boardrooms in Brussels, ancient basilicas in Rome, and quiet bedtime stories whispered in 3 languages: English, Italian, and perhaps a touch of Swedish. And yet, despite their impactful work and distinctly non-princely lives, every few months, without fail, some magazine or online publication will inevitably label him Prince Nicholas of Greece. It's a persistent reminder, a humorous yet telling detail, that fake news isn't some new, digitally born phenomenon. It's been around for ages. It just dresses a little better these days. Enjoying the untangling of this royal riddle so far. If you're finding this deep dive as fascinating as I am, do me a favor. Smash that subscribe button and let me know in the comments below which other royal rumor or historical mix-up you'd love to see debunked next. 'Cause trust me, the archives are incredibly deep, and the headlines, more often than not, are rarely the full, unvarnished truth. You might be tempted to shrug, perhaps even roll your eyes a little, and say, honestly, it's just a title, who cares? But here's the thing, names and titles aren't just labels. They shape narratives, they inform understanding, and they carry a surprising amount of weight, especially when it comes to history and public perception. Calling Nicholas a Greek prince does more than just mislabel him. It subtly, yet effectively, erases the peculiarly British and deeply historical reasons why he needed papal permission for his wedding in the first place. It glosses over the intricate tapestry of British constitutional monarchy and religious history that made his Vatican wedding such a groundbreaking event. Furthermore, this persistent misnomer also inadvertently buries a much more subtle, yet significant, shift in how we're starting to define royalty in the 21st century. The couple's conscious choice of Rome over Westminster, of embracing Catholic rites over strict Anglican tradition, wasn't just a personal preference. It quietly, yet powerfully, signaled that modern royals, particularly those further from the direct line of succession, can increasingly cross borders, bridge centuries-old religious divides, and navigate complex protocols without necessarily losing their place in the sprawling family tree. It speaks to a growing flexibility within royal houses, an acknowledgement that personal faith and international connections can coexist with tradition provided. Of course, they still meticulously file the necessary paperwork and get the Queen's blessing. It's a quiet revolution, unfolding one wedding at a time. Headlines, as we know, are fleeting. Flash brightly for a moment, then fade into the background noise of yesterday's news. But Wikipedia entries, those digital chronicles of our age, linger. And so, the Greek prince myth endures, perpetuated by the very tools designed to inform us. It survives because, let's be honest, it's shorter, it's sexier, it's undeniably easier to spell and remember than Doimi de Lupis. It's a tidy, romantic narrative that fits perfectly into a sound bite. Yet, as we've seen, the truth is always richer, more nuanced, and ultimately far more compelling. It's the story of a British lord, a man born into privilege, who made a profound personal choice, sacrificing his place in the line of succession for the sake of his faith and ultimately for love. And it's the story of a Croatian Swedish-Italian noblewoman, a woman of intelligence and grace, who never needed a tiara to turn heads or command respect. Their wedding wasn't about the grand machinations of kingdoms or the glittering weight of crowns. It was, at its heart, about the convergence of two families, the beautiful blending of two faiths, and the surprising resilience of one very stubborn myth that, despite all evidence, still resolutely refuses to die. It's a testament to the power of a good story, even when it's not quite true. So, the next time you hear someone mention the royal wedding of Prince Nicholas of Greece, you, my informed friend, can confidently set the record straight. You can explain that the groom was, in fact, unequivocally British, a lord of the Windsor family. The beautiful bride hailed from a distinguished Croatian lineage, and the only thing genuinely Greek about that memorable day, for being utterly precise, might have been the delicious olive oil drizzled generously over the reception bruschetta. History, we've learned, is absolutely full of these wonderful mix-ups and delightful misunderstandings. Luckily, it's also full of curious people, like us, who are always willing to dig a little deeper and correct them. If you've enjoyed this delightful dive down the rabbit hole, please drop a comment, hit that subscribe button, and share this video with that one friend who still believes, with all their heart, in classic fairy tale princes. Because sometimes, just sometimes, the real story behind the headlines is even better and far more fascinating than any fantasy.